Hi everyone, this is Jim. I wanted to do one last video on the U.S. Amateur West tournament that I played in. Thought I would go over the results and then talk about some conclusions that I had. And then after this, I will get back to my regular program of Blitz games. I have to say this was a successful series. I got more views than typical on these videos, so I guess it wasn't a bad choice to show some of my over-the-board games. I hope you didn't mind that I showed all of them. I've been showing my board games, over the board games occasionally, and usually I just pick out the ones that were especially interesting or that I was proud of in some way. And so that's kind of a biased sample, if you will. This was just 6 games in a row, played when I was in about average condition. So it's probably a pretty good sample of what my actual playing is like in these tournaments. And I think many of the games are interesting as well. And I had fun talking about the ups and downs of the tournament situation. Okay, let's talk about the tournament here. There was 3 sections. There was also some scholastic tournaments going on. There was a total of 161 players playing all together. But in the 3 main sections, Championship, Reserve, and Booster, I think there was, well, we'll go through and count them. I was in the championship section. This is from 1600 to 2200. So that's classes B, class A, classes B and A plus expert. The reserve under 1600 is really, 1200 to 1600. So that's classes C and B. And then the boosters under 1200. So that's class D and below. And I know that many of my viewers are in these other classes, and I just wanted to point out there was quite a good turnout in those sections as well, and these can be a lot of fun in these kind of tournaments at every level. So in the championship section, the winner was Andy Lynn. He had a score of 5.5 out of 6, so that's a tremendous score. It was 5 wins in a row and then a draw the final round against Robert Keogh. I guess he had played already the other top players. Well, I knew Mark took a bye the final round, Mark Knight. The player in second place was actually Jason Mueller here, and I know this because I was there at the end and talking to him. He was one of the players that I faced during the tournament, and he came in second on tie breaks. These 3 players all had 4.5 points, but Jason came in second and Mark Knight came in third, so he got this second place prize. Mark was taking a bye in the final round, so that probably hurt his standings from the point of view of the tie breaks. It's better to play all the rounds if you want the best tie breaks. So the number 2 and number 3 players are both players I faced. Mark Knight is a player I had the draw with in round 2, and Jason is a player I lost to in round 3. And you can see that both of them had decent tournaments. Jason just picked up a few points, 75 to 20, 78. Mark picked up quite a few. He went from 2,000 to 2,038. So I was playing some players who were doing pretty well in this tournament. Let's see who else I played. Oh, my first round game. Let's go down to the bottom of the tournament. My first round game was against William Austin, who was playing up. He wasn't over 1600. He was actually under 1600, but they do allow you to play up. And some coaches advise you to play up. It's a matter of maybe individual preference. I always preferred to play in my own section. But anyway, he didn't do so well. He lost to me. He managed to get a draw in round 3, and then he lost his remaining games. So probably a little early for him to be playing up, and particularly in such a strong tournament with players ranging all the way up to 2,100 here. So that's a pretty big tournament, pretty strong tournament. Let's see, who else did I play here? I played Dante Archuleta. Notice his rating. He was one of the players I said when I played him that he was a lower rated player. His rating was 1772, which was below mine at the beginning of the tournament. But by the end of the tournament, his rating had improved to 1848. So he leaped over me. My rating is down to 1814 now. So he passed me by. He's the player I lost to in round 4, where I made that terrible miscalculation. I played a tactic that just didn't work. And he did a great job of really staying calm, not getting flustered by the tactic, and then taking all the time he needed to figure it out, calculate the best response. And so I think he had a well earned good tournament. Let's see, he lost 2 games, won 3 games and then drew the final round. So he ended up with a score of 3.5. So that was good. The other player, who else did I play here? Okay, and then here's me. I went from 1822 to 1814, so I lost 8 points in this tournament with my score of 2.5 out of 3. Let's see. I played William Austin. I played Bark Knight. I played Jason Mueller. Who's 12? Was that Dante? Yeah, 12 was Dante. And then 23. I drew against Omar. That's right. So Omar was an interesting case too. He was another player I identified as being lower rated. But if you notice this notation here after his rating, this indicates it's a provisional rating, meaning he's only played 11 rated games. I talked to him a bit after the game. He said he'd played a lot online and just recently started playing in tournaments. So he was the guy, he had the white pieces against me. He played very solidly, and I could never get anything more than a draw. Let's see. Yeah, that was this round. In fact, yeah, he drew his final three games here. But that's enough to improve his rating. So he went from 1722 to 1748. I think, as he gains a little confidence, he's going to be a strong player because he did not make any mistakes in that game, which is a great first step. And now he just needs to play a little more actively and aggressively, and I think he'll be a strong player. And then my final round opponent was Jesus Martinez here. He was the guy who played the 2 nights opening. So he was having a bad tournament too, like me. He lost some rating points, and he was probably trying to get them back in the final round game. But at the same time, he was probably feeling tired as well, because I think the opening didn't really go the way he intended. I think I got caught on the wrong foot in the opening, and he showed some real resilience in fighting back. He never, it seemed like I was developing a kingside attack, but I could never find the way to break through. So I think he's probably a pretty good player, having kind of an off game and maybe an off tournament, because he started with 2 losses and then he came back with a couple wins and ended with a loss and a draw. So he was at 2.5 points as well as I was. Actually, I was among the players at 2.5. I was the top, so because of tie breaks. So I would have been, I suppose, in 18th place here if they sorted this according to the tie breaks. Okay, so that's how this round, that's how this section of the tournament ended up. And you can see there was a total of 33 players in that section. If you look at the reserve section, let's see, the winner was Matt Garrett with a score of 5 out of 6. I think that's more typical of winning scores. This score of 5.5 out of 6 is a very unusual and strong performance. Sometimes you can even win a 6-round tournament with a score of 4.5. But winning it with a score of 5 is pretty good. I actually won one 6-round tournament once where I had a score of 5 out of 6. So I know it's doable. And then tied for first place was Mark How. I have no idea how you pronounce that. Howat. And there were a total of 40 players in that section. So there were even more players in the reserve section than there were in the championship section. And then in the booster section, there's the under 1200. This was won by Matt Brown with a score of 6 out of 6. So that's terrific. And you see his provisional rating. He's someone who's new to tournament play. Went from 1191 to 1384. So he gained 200 points in this one tournament, and he probably won't be playing in this section next year. He'll probably be playing in the next section up. And second place went to Scott Song, also picked up over 100 points. So some good performances there. And there were a total of, there were a total of 49 players in the booster section. So you can see there's quite a good turnout in all the sections. And it was just a fun event. It was well run, so I recommend it to anyone who might be thinking of checking out a tournament. Let's see, one other thing I wanted to talk about in this video, and that is, what I was working on in terms of improving my game. So I had this, let's first talk about this. This is a document I created when I did that series, Chess Mistakes of an A Player, which is, there was this 4-step process I had identified where you start out by doing a tactical survey, then you look for candidate moves, you choose the best move, and then you do a blunder check at the end. So just 4 steps. And in order to make this easier to memorize, I gave a mnemonic. to each of these steps. So the first step is T, standing for tactics and threats. And the second step is P, standing for plans or maybe position. And the candidate moves kind of fall out of these first two steps. I mean, in a way, it was maybe a mistake to identify it that way. So P, this step is all about looking at the plans and looking at the position as opposed to looking at purely tactical things on the board. And then the third step, that's when you have your candidate moves and you choose the best one of them. So this is all about calculation, the candidate moves, and choosing. So that's C, standing for those three tasks, and then B for the blunder check, or those three aspects of that one step. So I have this mnemonic TP, C, and B, which I go through in my head as I make these moves. And I have to say, well, first of all, some people question the wisdom of having any kind of procedure like this. And someone even asked Chess Explained recently if he goes through any kind of process when he makes a move. And he said no, he just thinks about it. But I think what is really going on is that, he's a master and I'm not. And he's internalized these things. I mean, if you listen to him talk during the game, he automatically sees all of these tactical threats. He knows from his experience of playing all these kinds of all these different games that he knows all the plans that are appropriate, and he instantly identifies the positional factors. So these things that I have to make explicit are things that happen just unconsciously and automatically in a stronger player. So I think there's nothing wrong with having a simple process. I think the danger is that you go overboard. You don't have billions of steps and you can't possibly do them all because you get tired of doing the same thing over and over again. At least I do, and have trouble sort of maintaining the discipline of really going through all of these 4 steps each and every move, because things don't change all that much, right? You go from one move to the next, and the tactics and the threats are maybe still the same. You got to really key into what's different and what's changed in each of these. Are there new plans that have arisen because of the last move? Are there new threats? That kind of thing. And also, starting from the beginning of the game, you don't really go through all of these steps because you're just playing through some known sequence that you know some opening that you have pretty well memorized. And it's only when you get to that first move where you're out of the opening, you really need to pause and take a moment to really do the full survey. I think you really need to look for all the tactics, start thinking about the plans, and start calculating. And then... So I've been doing this for a while. I created this TPCB mnemonic, and then I was using it because I was having trouble. Like I said, I had one really bad tournament at my chess club where my rating dropped from 1865 to 1822, and then I started adding little notes as things went wrong. And one thing that went wrong in that last tournament was that I had a completely winning position. Let's see, my first 2 rounds I lost, but I was playing okay, and I played against stronger players, and sometimes that happens that you lose. But in my 3rd round, I was playing a weaker player. I had a better position. He had made a typical he was a Class B player. He'd made a pretty typical kind of mistake and gotten into a bad position. I was gradually increasing my advantage, and I got it all the way down to a winning endgame. And so I was finally relaxing, I guess, at that point. I was maintaining my concentration pretty well up to that point, and then I just started playing quickly, and I missed 1 point of what he was playing for, and in fact ended up losing that game. So I lost 3 in a row, and following my rule of 3 losses, and I withdraw from the tournament. I withdrew from that tournament. So that is how I lost my rating points. And so I made this slow down when winning, which I think actually helped me. I was thinking of this when I was playing against the one game that I won in the first round. I was really thinking about this. I had a winning position, but I needed to not move too fast and blow it, but to stay focused and stay concentrating on the game. And then one more thing I added to the list. I mean, it's not something to be. This is not part of the 4 steps. These are just extra little things to keep in mind. And this one is calculate to the end. I wrote this down on the list, on the sheet of paper, after my game 4, where I made that horrible miscalculation. I had calculated up to the point where I had a fork a pawn fork of 2 knights, and I didn't go to the next step to see if he had a way of escaping the fork. So this is my reminder: calculate to the end. So this is just here for your benefit if you can get anything out of it. What I have to say for my own play, I think you saw my own strengths and weaknesses in these games, and I made some notes. So game one, the game that I won, actually was saved by doing the blunder check. So I give credit to the blunder check because I had achieved a winning position through some middle game calculations. So I thought I had calculated that correctly, and then I was just I was about to play a move that I had calculated in advance when I realized that it was a blunder. And if I hadn't done the blunder check there, if I had just relied on my calculations and played that move, there was this knight fork that I would have missed, and he would have won the game. So that would have been a loss of 1 point. So the blunder check, I think, really saved me a whole point there. In game 3, that was the game that I lost to the higher rated player, to Jason. And it was a pretty well played game through the middle game. And what happened there was it was a combination of not calculating well enough during the end game and also feeling a little bit of time pressure. In general, my rule is when you're in time pressure, you can skip all of these steps except for the first one. You still need to do the tactical survey because if your opponent, leaves a mate and 1 on the board, you can solve your time pressure problems just by mating him. and the same thing with the blunder check. You really need to do the blunder check because, once again, you can solve all of your time pressure problems by losing in 1 move as well. So if you have to give everything up, you can play on instinct as long as you remember to do that tactical survey and the blunder check. So that's kind of the minimum 2 steps every move. And but if you have time, you should calculate. And I was under some time pressure, but I was not totally out of time. It was a fairly generous time control, including the 30-second increment, and I really just did not calculate enough in that end game and got outplayed. So that was a loss due to not calculating enough. Game 2, I didn't make any notes on that one, but I think game 2 was actually a well-played game. Neither side really had the advantage, and that ended in a draw, and I was facing a strong player, so that was a decent result. So I have no comments on game 2, but game 3, in-game calculation is clearly the issue, as well as dealing with time pressure. In game 4, that was that simple miscalculation. That was when I made this note, calculate to the end, where I just played a horrible blunder. Game 5 was a game where I agreed to a draw, and it was an even position, but as one of the viewers commented, I could have played on. It was a rook and pawn endgame. It was not totally symmetric. There were pawns on both sides of the board, and my opponent did have an isolated pawn. And I could have, my rook was in a position to get active. I could have gone down to the second rank there and tried to attack the pawns and stirred up some more trouble. So I think, that was just a decision on my part to agree to the draw at that point. It was a combination of being tired and not wanting to risk another blunder and also not seeing a clear way to win. But I think a strong player, and you see this in in a lot of top level games, they will play on even in positions they know are maybe theoretical draws if they think they still have chances to cause trouble and to get their opponent into trouble. And so that's an attitude thing, and also it also depends on how you're feeling. I mean, you shouldn't keep pressing if you're really exhausted because that can backfire on you. But if you are still feeling up to it. That's what makes us strong players, having that kind of mental stamina to maintain the pressure and to keep playing and looking for those opportunities. Because if you think about it, you shouldn't agree to a draw just because the position is even, because you start out in an even position. Your job is always to try and unbalance the position in your favor and get some advantage. And that's true as long as the game continues. And as long as there are, possibilities of ways to unbalance it, then you should be searching for that. And only when you can no longer find them, there can be other factors too. Like I said, you could be tired, or you could be wanting to go out and have dinner. there are lots of things when you're a casual player, not a professional. But that's maybe one thing that differentiates the stronger players, that greater determination and greater mental stamina to continue on and play on in situations like that. Okay, and then game 6 was another game where the blunder check really played a factor, and this was the case where I omitted the blunder check, right? And I played that one move where I just basically hung a rook. It wasn't hanging a rook. That's not quite right. I put the rook on a square where it was subject to a double attack. So there was an attack, a pawn move, where his queen attacked my bishop and the queen attacked my rook, which was undefended, and the pawn attacked my bishop. So that was a pretty simple double attack that if I had done the blunder check, I wouldn't have played that move. I would have played better. And I was just luck. It was just luck that my opponent didn't spot that and take advantage of it. So I'll credit the blunder check with another half point potentially. So just of these steps, it seems like the blunder check is the one that contributes the most to improving or to maintaining your performance. And also that game 6, I made a move in time pressure that really gave away the win. I think I had a winning game all the way up to move 39, and then that 40th move where I traded off the rook for the knight and hoping to win a pawn. Obviously, I hadn't calculated ahead that he could get that pawn back and more with all of his queen moves. So it's a combination of not calculating deep enough and not playing well in time pressure, which is a theme in these games. So those are the things I need to work on. Now, you can also work on, in terms of improving your chess, you can also work on basic stuff too, like just getting better at tactics. You study tactics, or learning the openings better. You can study the openings, or learning in games. You can study them, or even the middle game. You can study lots of games of the masters and learn middle game plans. These are things that improve kind of your native chess ability. But then there's the application of that ability to a game, and that's where I think having a consistent process and remembering to look for things like tactics, threats, blunders, and going through some kind of process like this. It's all about getting the most out of what you have already. So I'm not trying with this process here to improve my chess knowledge so much as I am trying to improve my results using the chess knowledge that I already have. Okay, well, that concludes this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this little discussion, and I'll be back tomorrow, I guess, with some more Blitz games. See you then.